Carl Jung's hidden truth, the psychology of people who are deep thinkers. Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like your mind runs deeper than most? As if you see layers in people and situations that others overlook. In today's video, Carl Jung's hidden truth, the psychology of people who are deep thinkers. We'll explore what it truly means to live with this kind of spiritual and intellectual depth, and how you can use it to transform your daily life into one of awareness, peace, and purpose. Take a moment to reflect. Do you consider yourself a deep thinker, or are you still learning to understand your inner world? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and together, let's uncover the spiritual wisdom behind the mind of a true thinker. 1. The nature of deep thinkers. Deep thinkers are quiet observers who move through the world with a rare depth of awareness, existing not on the surface of life, but beneath it, where silence speaks and meaning hides between the lines. They process reality through reflection, intuition, and sensitivity, and what others overlook becomes, to them, a gateway to profound truth. For deep thinkers, every encounter is symbolic, every word has a vibration, and every experience carries a spiritual lesson. They live in a state of inner contemplation, where thinking is not an act of effort, but the natural rhythm of their soul. In the journey of spirituality and spiritual awakening, they embody the role of seekers, those who walk between intellect and intuition, constantly decoding the unseen order behind existence. In their inner world, thought is not mere logic. It is energy, alive and transformative. They perceive patterns that most people miss, the quiet synchronicities between events, the subtle emotions and voices, the mysterious timing of life. They look at a flower and see not only beauty, but impermanence. They witness a storm and sense the cleansing of the collective spirit. They observe human suffering and perceive the hidden seed of transformation. This depth of perception often isolates them because their awareness reaches beyond the ordinary. They don't crave noise or constant validation. Instead, they find nourishment in stillness, where divine wisdom whispers. Their solitude is sacred, not empty. It is the temple of insight, where consciousness awakens to its own infinite nature. Carl Jung described this path as the process of individuation, the unfolding of the self from the unconscious into awareness. For deep thinkers, this process happens naturally. They are drawn to question everything, why the world is as it is, who they are beyond the mask of personality, and how pain can lead to transcendence. Through these questions, they move closer to understanding the essence of the soul. They begin to see that thinking itself is a form of prayer, a dialogue with the divine intelligence that animates all creation. Their spirituality is not about worshiping an idea of God, but realizing the divine through awareness, through the simple act of noticing life deeply. Yet this path is not easy. The same mind that grants them depth also exposes them to the weight of overthinking, to the endless corridors of analysis that can lead to exhaustion or doubt. They often feel too much, too deeply, and the world's superficial rhythm can feel unbearable. But in this challenge lies their awakening. When they learn to balance the intellect with intuition, the analytical mind with the silent heart, their inner world becomes a source of light instead of heaviness. They realize that the goal is not to escape the mind, but to master its flow, to allow thought to serve wisdom instead of fear. This harmony transforms reflection into revelation, turning their mental power into a tool for creation, understanding, and compassion. Deep thinkers live as translators of energy, converting the invisible into words, art, and action. Their insights often carry the essence of universal truth because they think from the soul rather than the surface. When they speak, it is not to impress, but to illuminate. When they observe, it is not to judge, but to understand. Their life is an ongoing meditation on the interconnectedness of all things, a living dialogue between spirit and matter. They are dreamers who have awakened, thinkers who feel, and feelers who see. In every breath, they sense the pulse of the universe, reminding them that thought, when aligned with consciousness, becomes creation itself. 2. Inner world versus outer world. They live suspended between two dimensions, an inner world rich with thought, emotion, and endless questioning, and an outer world that moves too fast, too loud, too shallow to notice the depth beneath the surface. Their silence is not emptiness. It is a quiet storm of reflection. When they seem distant, it is not because they are uninterested, but because they are seeing beyond what others see. They are listening not only to words, but to the spaces between them, sensing meanings that hide beneath casual conversation. They inhabit a space where spirituality and psychology intertwine, where the search for understanding becomes an act of faith, and every insight is a step toward deeper spiritual development. In a world obsessed with noise, their calm presence is often misunderstood. They are not disengaged. They are deeply aware. Their thoughts unfold like galaxies, spinning around questions of purpose, truth, and human nature. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." For these deep thinkers, this is not just a quote, it is a way of living. They constantly turn inward, exploring the landscapes of their own minds with curiosity and courage. Their spirituality is not about escape or withdrawal, but about transformation, turning every silence into understanding, every thought into light, and every reflection into growth. The outer world, with its endless motion and constant distraction, can feel exhausting to those who dwell in such inner depth. Yet this contrast is what shapes them. They retreat not out of weakness, but to preserve clarity. Silence becomes their sacred ground, a place to recharge the spirit and realign with truth. In that space of stillness, they rediscover themselves and reconnect to something greater, the essence of life that moves quietly beneath all things. Their mind becomes a temple where awareness meets grace and where thought evolves into wisdom. If you have ever felt this way, torn between your inner depth and the world's demand for speed, you are not lost. You are awakening. The world may not always understand those who think deeply, but that misunderstanding is part of the spiritual path. To know yourself is to walk between worlds, the visible and the invisible, the external and the internal. Your reflection is not a retreat, but a return, a way to come home to your own consciousness. And within that sacred space between thought and silence, your true spiritual development begins, reminding you that the deepest truths are not found in noise, but in the quiet light of awareness. Have you ever noticed how your inner world shapes the way you see the outer world? If you've experienced this deep connection between your thoughts and reality, share your insight in the comments below so others can learn from your journey. If not, comment, I will observe my inner world and begin this transformative exploration with us today. 3. Psychological traits. Deep thinkers, as Carl Jung revealed through his spiritual wisdom, are individuals whose minds rarely rest. They are constantly analyzing, reflecting, and questioning their own emotions, motives, and perceptions. Their inner world is alive with meaning, symbols, and patterns that most people overlook. This heightened introspection gives them a deep awareness of their inner landscape, allowing them to understand not only what they think, but why they think it. Their ability to step outside their own mind and observe it is what Jung called metacognition, a rare skill that opens the door to profound insight, but also to inner conflict. For such people, thoughts are not just mental activities, but living energies that demand attention, exploration, and transformation. Inside their minds, the default mode network, the part of the brain active during rest and reflection, is constantly firing, weaving imagination, memory, and vision together like threads in an endless tapestry. This is why deep thinkers often get lost in thought. They see connections where others see chaos and discover meaning in moments others forget. This same creative mechanism, however, can turn against them, leading to cycles of overthinking and self-doubt. They may replay old memories, question every choice, or imagine infinite outcomes, not because they are indecisive, but because their mind refuses to settle for surface-level understanding. As Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." For deep thinkers, every inward gaze is an awakening, but awakening often comes with the price of solitude. Their perception of reality is not linear, but symbolic. They live between worlds, the outer one of routine and the inner one of meaning. They seek truth beneath appearances, essence beneath form, and purpose beneath pain. This makes them different, often misunderstood by those who live only on the surface. Deep thinkers may appear distant, but inside they are vividly alive. They need solitude, not as escape, but as nourishment. Silence becomes their temple, where ideas are born and emotions are purified. They communicate best not through small talk, but through honesty and depth, valuing conversations that touch the soul rather than skim the surface. Yet, this psychological intensity can be exhausting. Their sensitivity makes them empathic to others' emotions and energies, absorbing pain that isn't theirs to carry. Their compassion is both their strength and their weakness. Jung believed that every gift contains its shadow, and for deep thinkers, that shadow is emotional fatigue. To evolve, they must learn balance between thought and action, introspection and expression, solitude and connection. The mind is a powerful instrument, but when left unchecked, it can become a labyrinth. Jung's path of individuation teaches that true growth comes from integrating both the light and the dark within. Those who think deeply are spiritual explorers, disguised as ordinary people. They are not here to escape the world, but to understand it through the lens of consciousness. Their constant reflection is not a burden. It is the sign of a soul that refuses to live unconsciously. Their task is to transform analysis into awareness, awareness into wisdom, and wisdom into peace. And as they walk that path, guided by the timeless insights of Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom, they remind us that the mind's greatest purpose is not to think endlessly, but to awaken fully. 4. Emotional sensitivity and existential awareness. They experience emotions not as fleeting waves, but as vast oceans that echo through their entire being, touching everything they see and feel. When such souls awaken to spirituality, they begin to perceive life through a lens far deeper than ordinary perception. They don't simply overthink. They think existentially, exploring questions about purpose, consciousness, and the hidden fabric of truth that binds all existence. For them, every emotion is a portal, and every thought a seed of transformation. When others see a sunset, they see the divine hand painting impermanence. When others feel heartbreak, they see the sacred lesson of attachment and surrender. Their spiritual awakening is both a gift and a burden, the gift of seeing what others cannot, and the burden of feeling what others refuse to feel. This heightened awareness makes them wise, intuitive, and compassionate, yet it can also leave them feeling like strangers in a world that moves too fast and feels too little. They live in a constant dialogue between the heart and the universe, translating unseen energy into words, images, and meaning. Every silence speaks to them, every encounter carries symbolism, and every pain holds a message waiting to be decoded. Such souls don't escape suffering, they study it. They dissect their own pain to understand the collective wounds of humanity, knowing that their depth has purpose. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Deep thinkers live this truth daily. They wrestle with their shadow, their inner child, their higher self, all parts of the psyche seeking harmony. Their spiritual wisdom grows not from avoiding chaos, but from embracing it, realizing that inner order only comes when one confronts the darkness without fear. Yet, this depth of awareness often isolates them. They crave authentic connections that mirror their inner truth, but most people are afraid of such depth. While the world chases distraction, they chase meaning. While others seek comfort, they seek understanding. Loneliness becomes their silent companion, not because they are unlovable, but because they vibrate at a frequency few can match. But in solitude, they find clarity. In silence, they discover communion with the divine. Their thoughts spiral not downward, but inward, leading them to a sacred realization that the journey of a deep thinker is not about escaping reality, but awakening within it. To think existentially is to live consciously. To feel deeply is to love courageously. And to walk this path of sensitivity is to embody the truth that spiritual awakening is not a destination, but an eternal unfolding of awareness. Do you feel deeply, sometimes more than words can express? If this message about emotional sensitivity and existential awareness resonates with your soul, declare it with courage in the comments below. I feel deeply, and I understand my purpose. 5. The gift and burden of depth. Their mind weaves connections between everything, turning silence into philosophy and memory into entire emotional landscapes that breathe with meaning. They are the kind of souls who can find patterns in the chaos, hearing the language of life in every subtle vibration. This rare gift makes them visionaries, the kind who think like Carl Jung or Leonardo da Vinci, seeing what others cannot see, feeling what others cannot feel. But such depth comes with weight, for when your perception runs deep, so does your pain. Every thought feels alive. Every memory lingers like a scent that never fades. You can walk through a quiet room and sense the emotions that once lived there, feel the energy of words never spoken, and understand what lies beneath what others call coincidence. This is the sacred blessing and the heavy curse of depth in a mind that never stops connecting, interpreting, and remembering. You often find yourself lost between worlds, drifting through the inner universe of your thoughts while trying to stay grounded in a world that rarely understands such intensity. Nostalgia becomes your shadow, not because you live in the past, but because you hold on to the essence of every experience as though it were a fragment of eternity. When others forget, you remember. When others move on, you still feel the echo. And yet, this sensitivity, the same one that makes you misunderstood, is also the very thing that keeps your soul awake. It gives you empathy so profound that you can sense another's pain without a word. As Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. You don't just think you feel reality in layers, transforming each emotion into understanding and every question into a doorway to deeper spirituality. Your mind can blend logic and intuition into one stream, merging science with art, reason with emotion, intellect with soul. But that same mind can also trap you, leading you to overanalyze every detail until beauty turns into burden. That is why spiritual development for deep thinkers is not about thinking more. It is about learning when to stop thinking and start being. It's about grounding yourself in the present moment, letting silence be a teacher instead of a storm. You must learn to walk between two worlds, the world of thought and the world of stillness, without losing yourself in either. Because even the deepest ocean needs the calmness of the shore. Your depth is not a flaw, but a frequency, a vibration that allows you to experience the universe more fully than most. The lesson is to let your mind serve your heart, not silence it. Let your thoughts be instruments of creation, not cages of confusion. When you allow your intelligence to flow through compassion and presence, your depth becomes light. You stop drowning in your emotions and begin to dance with them. You stop searching for meaning and begin to live it. And that is where true spirituality begins, not in knowing more, but in feeling life with the wholeness of your being. 6. Communication and empathy. You value precision in language and emotional truth because deep down, you feel words as energy rather than sound. Every conversation is like reading a symphony. You hear not only the melody of what is said, but also the silence between notes, the subtle rhythm of tone and body language, and the quiet tremor of what remains unspoken. This gift of empathy makes you emotionally intelligent and able to connect with others on a level most people never reach. Yet it also makes you highly sensitive to the smallest inconsistencies, the faintest dishonesty, or the shallow mask of superficial talk. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." You understand this truth deeply because each genuine conversation leaves a mark on you. It changes your energy, refines your perception, and teaches you something about the human soul. When you communicate, you don't just use words, you transmit presence. Your intuition allows you to feel someone's true emotional state before they even articulate it, and you naturally seek alignment between thought and feeling. You notice when someone says, "I'm fine," but their eyes reveal unease. You sense when laughter hides pain, or when confidence is only a disguise for fear. This ability is part of your spiritual wisdom, a rare awareness that sees beyond illusions and dives into essence. But with this gift comes responsibility. Because you can read between the lines, you must also protect yourself from being consumed by the emotions of others. Learning to observe without absorbing is an act of spiritual maturity, and it allows your empathy to remain a tool for insight rather than a source of exhaustion. You value honesty and emotional precision because they create safety. When people are authentic, your soul relaxes. When they lie or perform, your energy contracts instantly. This is not judgment, it's discernment. Carl Jung taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's why you listen so carefully. You are listening for the unconscious, the truth behind the words, the emotional fingerprint that reveals someone's inner landscape. You notice what others miss, the slight pause before a confession, the lowered tone before a truth too fragile to say aloud, and your empathy translates it into understanding. But this same sensitivity can make you a mirror for others' pain. And sometimes you carry feelings that aren't yours. The art, then, is to balance openness with self-protection. You can care deeply without losing yourself. You can listen with compassion while holding your own emotional center. Communication, for you, is not small talk. It is soul talk. It's a sacred exchange of energy that either nourishes or drains you. That's why you crave authenticity and depth. You are not interested in empty words or polite masks. You want presence, coherence, and truth. The moment language aligns with emotion, you feel harmony. The moment someone speaks from the heart, you feel trust. And when words and energy don't match, your intuition warns you that something is off. Your empathy is a reflection of your evolved consciousness. It's the bridge between your mind and your soul. But you must use it wisely. Speak with clarity even when it's uncomfortable. Honor your truth even when it challenges others. Let your words be instruments of peace, not weapons of defense. As Jung reminded us, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Every honest conversation becomes a mirror for awakening, and every moment of truthful speech strengthens your emotional integrity. Precision in language is not about perfection, it's about respect for the human spirit. Through the alignment of words, emotion, and truth, you transform communication into connection, empathy into understanding, and sensitivity into the highest form of spiritual wisdom. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on mastering communication and empathy through the lens of Carl Jung. 7. Solitude, creativity, and healing. Solitude is their sacred retreat, the hidden garden of the soul, where silence breathes clarity and the noise of the world dissolves into peace. It is in these quiet hours that deep thinkers find renewal, for solitude does not imprison them, it liberates them. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And within this awakening, solitude becomes the mirror that reveals the unseen layers of consciousness. Those who have walked the path of spirituality understand that solitude is not an absence of connection, but the birthplace of it. It is where the divine speaks in whispers, where thought becomes light and emotion becomes art. In the stillness, their creativity blooms like a secret spring, transforming inner chaos into beauty, pain into poetry, and confusion into clarity. Through art, writing, and reflection, they release what words cannot contain, turning wounds into wisdom and sorrow into strength. Each brushstroke, each word, and each note becomes a vessel for the soul's quiet revelations, a form of healing born not from avoidance, but from deep communion with truth. True healing emerges when they learn to balance thought and feeling, intellect and intuition, reason and empathy. It is not the suppression of the mind, but the transformation of it, a blending of awareness and emotion that gives birth to compassion. In the journey of spiritual awakening, intellect alone can dissect reality, but only feeling can illuminate it. When they allow their hearts to guide what their minds observe, understanding deepens into spiritual wisdom, and self-awareness becomes a living force of love. Healing, in this sense, is not about fixing the self, but about allowing the divine order within to restore harmony. It is when the deep thinker realizes that every struggle, every tear, and every silent night holds the seed of transcendence. Solitude becomes their teacher, showing them that the greatest art is the art of integration, the fusion of what they know and what they feel. They begin to live in balance, where logic does not overpower emotion, but complements it, creating an inner rhythm that mirrors the heartbeat of the universe. In that rhythm, they find serenity, for they no longer seek meaning outside themselves, but discover it within. Every moment of silence becomes a dialogue with the sacred. Every thought becomes a prayer. Solitude teaches them that healing is not an event, but a process, a continuous unfolding of awareness into compassion and of self-knowledge into grace. Through spirituality, they awaken to the understanding that solitude was never emptiness. It was the womb of their becoming, the divine space where intellect transforms into empathy and awareness blossoms into timeless wisdom. If this message resonates with your soul, take a moment to pause and breathe. True healing begins in silence, and creativity blooms in solitude. Comment below. I will meditate to affirm your journey toward inner peace and self-discovery. 8. Emotional complexity and humor. People with emotional complexity live in a world where feelings intertwine and coexist, joy, grief, and awe often appearing in the same heartbeat. They are not afraid to feel everything all at once because they sense the sacred balance between beauty and loss. To them, life is not divided into neat boxes of pleasure and pain. It is a tapestry where sorrow gives depth to happiness, and laughter is born from the ashes of tears. This awareness reveals a rare spiritual intelligence, one that sees meaning even in the contradictions of existence. They understand that the soul grows not by avoiding pain, but by embracing it, and this acceptance becomes the essence of their spirituality and spiritual development. Their hearts carry the quiet wisdom that Carl Jung once expressed. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Through this awareness, they learn to navigate the invisible terrain of emotion, discovering that to feel deeply is not a weakness, but a divine strength. Their humor, too, is not ordinary. It is a reflection of their depth. They laugh not because life is easy, but because they understand how absurd and beautiful it truly is. Their humor becomes a light that dissolves heaviness, a spiritual response to the chaos of existence. It is the kind of laughter that heals rather than hides, that acknowledges the pain yet refuses to let it define them. In this way, humor becomes their quiet rebellion against despair, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, the soul can still choose joy. They use laughter not as an escape, but as a form of transcendence, turning awareness into lightness and sorrow into art. Their jokes carry truth. Their smiles carry resilience, and behind every moment of levity lies the depth of someone who has seen the shadow and still chosen to shine. To such souls, emotions are sacred teachers. They do not suppress what they feel. Instead, they honor each emotion as a messenger from the divine. Joy teaches gratitude, sorrow teaches humility, and fear teaches faith. They understand that emotional integration is the path to spiritual awakening. That balance does not come from control, but from surrender. Their spiritual development thrives in this balance, the merging of light and shadow, laughter and tears, strength and vulnerability. They embody what it means to be fully human, yet spiritually aware, grounded, yet transcendent. Their presence comforts others because it is honest. They can sit with another's pain without the need to fix it, for they have learned that silence can heal more than words ever could. In a society obsessed with perfection, they embrace imperfection as the true form of grace. They know that to cry and laugh in the same breath is not confusion, but alignment with life's rhythm. Every emotion, whether heavy or light, is part of the divine conversation shaping their soul's evolution. Through this awareness, they remind us that spiritual growth is not about escaping the world, but about being fully present in it with humor, with depth, and with compassion. Their lives whisper a truth that words can barely hold, that in the dance between pain and laughter lies the soul's highest expression of love, and that emotional complexity is not chaos. It is the language of an awakened heart. 9. Love and connection. Deep thinkers love consciously and deliberately, never rushing into emotions they have not yet understood. They seek connection, not validation, and when they love, they do so with the depth of a soul that has walked through solitude and learned to find peace in its own company. For them, love is not a temporary thrill. It is a sacred exchange of energy, a mirror that reflects who they truly are beneath the surface. They do not crave constant attention. They crave resonance. They want to feel seen, not for what they show, but for what they silently carry within. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." And indeed, that transformation is what deep thinkers seek, the kind of love that changes who you are because it awakens what has been asleep inside you. Their love language is curiosity, attention, and understanding. They listen not only to your words, but to the pauses between them. They notice the tremor in your tone, the weight in your silence, and the meaning hidden behind what you choose not to say. Their love feels like stillness, not chaos. It is a calm presence that doesn't need to prove itself. They believe that real intimacy begins when masks fall away, when two souls meet without performance or fear. They are fascinated not by what you have, but by what shaped you. The stories behind your scars, the dreams you dare not speak, the pain that taught you compassion. This curiosity is not interrogation. It is reverence for your inner world, for the universe that lives inside your mind. Deep thinkers see relationships as mirrors of the self. Every connection is a chance to evolve, to confront one's hidden patterns, to transform unconscious pain into conscious awareness. Their love is not about possession or control. It is about expansion. They don't want to own you. They want to understand you. They don't want you to complete them. They want you to walk beside them as two whole beings growing together. Love, to them, is a spiritual awakening that teaches patience, surrender, and emotional honesty. It asks you to face your wounds and embrace your shadows, because only then can you truly love and be loved. As Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Deep thinkers know that love without self-awareness is just attachment, and attachment without understanding leads to pain. When they finally trust, they love entirely and profoundly. Their affection may not be loud, but it is constant, like a heartbeat that never stops. They offer loyalty that does not fade with distance, and presence that does not disappear in silence. They will not chase attention because their love is rooted in truth, not fear. They are slow to open their hearts because they understand the sacredness of emotional exchange. But once they do, they love as if it were their soul's calling. Their connection is not about drama or desire. It is about depth, alignment, and the meeting of two energies that bring peace instead of chaos. Through spiritual wisdom, they understand that true love is not a fire that burns. It is a light that guides. It does not demand. It inspires. It does not consume. It elevates. And when a deep thinker loves you, you are not simply loved. You are understood, seen, and awakened to the divine within yourself. Stay connected with our circle of deep thinkers by subscribing to Spiritual Wisdom. Here, we explore the hidden truths of the mind and heart, inspired by Carl Jung's timeless psychology. True deep thinkers carry a rare kind of light, one that sees beyond illusions and questions what most accept without thought. As Carl Jung taught, the greatest minds are those who explore not just the world, but the depths within themselves. If today's message helped you understand yourself on a deeper level, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who seek inner wisdom, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming insights into the soul and the mysteries of the human mind. You're more healed than you think. Carl Jung once said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." Healing works the same way. It unfolds quietly, uniquely, and often without you even realizing it. Sometimes, the very peace you feel today is the proof of the battles you've already won. In this video, we'll explore the subtle, hidden signs that you've grown far more than you think. So as you watch, reflect on your own journey. What moment showed you that your spirit has already begun to heal? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's inspire one another on this path of spiritual wisdom and awakening. 1. Comfort in solitude. When you no longer fear being alone with your thoughts, you've entered one of the quietest and most profound stages of healing. There's a calm that comes when you stop chasing distractions and learn to find peace in your own company. This isn't loneliness, it's recognition. It's the moment when you realize that your mind is no longer an enemy, but a companion, and silence has become sacred instead of unbearable. Carl Jung once said that people will do anything to avoid facing their own souls, and yet here you are, sitting with yours without resistance. That is the essence of spiritual awakening. The moment you stop running from yourself and begin to understand that the peace you were seeking outside has always lived within. The journey into solitude used to feel like exile, a void you tried to fill with noise, validation, or endless movement. But now, solitude feels like home. You've met the parts of yourself you once buried: the pain, the doubt, the hidden memories, and instead of rejecting them, you've embraced them with compassion. You've looked into the mirror of your own consciousness and said, "I see you and I accept you." That is shadow integration, the core of Jung's psychology and the soul of spirituality. It's the recognition that healing isn't about becoming flawless. It's about befriending every fragment of who you are. When you begin to enjoy your own presence, something miraculous happens. The constant craving for validation dissolves. You no longer need someone else's attention to feel alive. You stop measuring your worth by how many people notice you or how much noise fills your days. Instead, you become aware of the quiet rhythm of your inner being, the slow, sacred heartbeat of your own existence. You realize that solitude isn't emptiness, but space. The space where your soul can breathe, where intuition speaks, and where divine wisdom whispers truths the world is too loud to hear. This stage of spiritual growth doesn't announce itself with celebration. It doesn't look like victory or feel like revelation. It unfolds softly, like dawn light through a curtain, subtle, yet undeniable. You catch yourself at peace on a Sunday morning, unbothered by the silence that once made you anxious. You sit still, and instead of reaching for your phone or the next distraction, you listen. You notice your breath, your thoughts, your presence. And in that noticing, you meet something eternal. You realize that healing was never about fixing what was broken. It was about remembering who you've always been beneath the noise. To be comfortable in solitude means you've stopped fearing your own reflection. You've learned that even your pain carries wisdom, that your past no longer holds you captive, and that silence is the purest form of truth. The person who once couldn't stand being alone is now someone who thrives in stillness. And that, in itself, is the greatest sign of spiritual awakening. You are more healed than you think, not because the world around you changed, but because you finally made peace with the world within. Have you ever found peace in being alone? Solitude isn't emptiness. It's where your soul learns to breathe. If you've experienced a moment of comfort in your own company, share it in the comments so others can be inspired by your journey. And if you're still learning to embrace solitude, comment below. I'm ready to find peace within, so we can walk this path of healing and spiritual awakening together. 2. Triggers losing power. When the situations that once shattered you now only stir a quiet wave within, it's no longer a coincidence, it's a revelation of spiritual growth. You may still feel that brief ache when something brushes against an old wound, but it doesn't drown you anymore. It moves through you, and then it's gone. That's the soul's way of showing that the pain has been integrated, that the past no longer holds the authority to define your present. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And now, you're living the proof of that wisdom. The patterns that once pulled your strings are losing their power because you have stopped identifying with the story of your suffering. You've stepped into awareness of the sacred space where reaction transforms into response and chaos turns into clarity. You see, spirituality is not about becoming untouchable or emotionless. It's about reclaiming your peace from the places where you once lost it. It's about realizing that triggers are not enemies, but messengers, reminders of what still needs your compassion, not your control. When someone criticizes you, and instead of shrinking, you breathe and see their projection for what it is that's healing. When disappointment comes, and instead of despair, you remind yourself that life unfolds according to divine timing, that's maturity. The storms may still come, but you've built a foundation that doesn't collapse. You're no longer asking, "Why me?" but whispering, "What is this teaching me?" That subtle shift is where true spiritual awakening begins, when you stop chasing validation, stop rehearsing pain, and start living from inner trust. Each time you pause instead of react, you are rewriting your story. Each moment you stay calm, where you once would have broken, you are reclaiming your power from the unconscious. Healing doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It shows itself through your silence, your restraint, your ability to stand in presence without defending your worth. Your growth hides in these ordinary moments, in the grace with which you forgive, the ease with which you release, and the strength with which you stay soft in a hard world. And though you might not see it, every time you choose peace over drama, compassion over bitterness, awareness over impulse, you are living proof that your soul has evolved. This is the invisible beauty of spiritual growth. Not the absence of triggers, but the mastery over them. Not the end of emotion, but the transformation of energy. You have become conscious of the very things that once controlled you, and that consciousness itself is freedom. You are learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting the storm. It means remembering your strength. And through that quiet strength, your spirit has become untouchable, not by building walls, but by expanding beyond them. 3. Embracing paradox. You know you've reached a quiet depth of healing when you can hold contradictions inside you without falling apart. You can love someone deeply and still feel frustrated by them. You can be grateful for what you have and yet still dream of more. You can feel strong and still admit that you're uncertain. That's not weakness. It's the essence of what Carl Jung called psychological maturity, the sacred ability to be whole instead of perfect. Perfection is sterile, but wholeness is alive. It's the moment you realize that opposites can coexist in harmony, and that light can only exist because of shadow. Jung once said, "The paradox is one of our most valuable spiritual possessions, because it teaches us that inner peace doesn't come from erasing conflict, but from integrating it." There was a time when you might have thought healing meant becoming only calm, only kind, only positive. But now you understand that real healing is the ability to stand in the middle of contradiction without losing yourself. It's when you stop fighting your sadness and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. It's when you can forgive someone without denying the pain they caused. Spiritual wisdom isn't about choosing one side of life over the other. It's about seeing that both darkness and light are part of the same divine truth. The deeper you go, the more you realize that every emotion, even the painful ones, carries a message from your soul asking to be understood. Think about how far you've come. Once, you might have seen things in extremes, good or bad, success or failure, right or wrong. But now, you can breathe in the space between them. You've learned that life isn't meant to be solved like a puzzle, but embraced like a mystery. You no longer panic when uncertainty visits. You simply let it sit beside you and whisper its lessons. Jung believed that the path of awakening begins when we stop rejecting parts of ourselves. He wrote, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what you've done. You've started to see your anger as passion misdirected, your fear as a signpost toward growth, your pain as a doorway to truth. When you can hold two truths at once without needing to choose, you've already stepped into mastery. You've discovered that you can be both tender and powerful, both grounded and wild, both human and divine. You've stopped chasing the illusion of being fixed because you now understand you were never truly broken. You were just learning how to hold your opposites in love. That's what Carl Jung meant by integrating the process of uniting the conscious and the unconscious, the sacred and the flawed, until they dance together as one. So when you find yourself loving and doubting, forgiving and hurting, surrendering and resisting all at once, don't rush to correct it. Just notice it. That's your soul evolving quietly, growing stronger in silence. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or revelation. It's the slow expansion of your capacity to hold life as it is. The moment you can say, "I am both," and feel peace in that truth, you have already touched the heart of spiritual awakening and embodied the rare spiritual wisdom that Carl Jung spent his life trying to illuminate. Comment below, "I embrace the paradox," if you're ready to find peace in life's contradictions and see how your inner growth has been quietly unfolding all along. 4. Freedom from projections. When you begin to awaken spiritually, something remarkable happens. You stop letting other people's opinions shape your reality. You no longer live under the weight of their judgments or carry their insecurities as your own. You start to see clearly where you end and others begin. As Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That simple truth becomes a compass for your awakening. You recognize that when someone projects their fears onto you, it has nothing to do with your essence and everything to do with their unhealed pain. You no longer absorb their energy. You let it pass through like a wave dissolving on the shore. What once felt like a personal attack now feels like information evidence of another person's inner struggle, and you move with quiet awareness rather than emotional reactivity. This is not detachment born from indifference, but wisdom born from clarity. You start to feel when someone's words carry the vibration of their wounds. Instead of defending yourself, you remain centered. Instead of explaining your worth, you rest in it. This is the power of spiritual awakening. It refines your boundaries without hardening your heart. You realize that not every criticism deserves a response, and not every projection deserves your energy. People can only see you through the filters of their own consciousness. Their perception is not your responsibility. The more you embody this truth, the freer you become. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But when you see projections for what they truly are, you stop living by other people's unconscious stories and start living by your own awareness. That is emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain rooted in your own energy no matter what others send your way. True healing, as Jung taught, doesn't arrive with fanfare. It doesn't announce itself in loud transformations. It happens quietly, almost invisibly, in the moments where you would have once been triggered but now remain calm. You might still feel the old sensations rise, the pulse quickening, the urge to explain, but instead of reacting, you breathe. You witness. You choose peace over chaos. That's how you know growth has happened. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you learned how to stay centered through the feeling. Your silence becomes strength. Your boundaries become sacred. You realize that self-respect is not about building walls. It's about knowing the value of your energy and protecting it with love. Through this stage of spiritual awakening, you stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop performing for approval. The praise no longer inflates you, and the criticism no longer wounds you. You exist in a deeper rhythm now, one guided by inner truth rather than outer validation. The judgments of others no longer define your identity because you have learned to define yourself through presence, awareness, and compassion. This is freedom from projections, the kind of freedom that can't be taken away because it comes from within. It's the moment you realize you are no longer who the world told you to be. You are who your soul has always known you were. In that realization lies one of the most profound signs of hidden growth Carl Jung ever described. The awakening of a consciousness so radiant that the shadows of others can no longer touch your light. 5. Dream transformation. One of the most revealing signs of inner healing is when the tone of your dreams begins to change. You may not even realize it at first, but the chaos that once filled your nights slowly turns into calm. The fear that used to chase you becomes curiosity, and the darkness that once swallowed you starts to open into light. This is not a coincidence. It is the voice of your unconscious reorganizing itself after years of inner conflict. According to Carl Jung, dreams are the purest expressions of the soul. They are messages written in the language of symbols, showing us what words cannot express. When your dreams begin to shift from chaos to exploration, it means that something deep inside you has started to trust life again. Perhaps you used to dream of running away, of being lost, of facing shadows you could not escape. But now, instead of running, you stand your ground. You walk through that same dark forest, not as a victim, but as a seeker. You enter the same house that once terrified you and discover that behind its locked doors are rooms filled with warmth and light. These changes are not just about the dreams themselves. They are evidence that your psyche is healing, that your soul has accepted its own wholeness. This is what true spiritual growth looks like: silent but profound, invisible but powerful. It happens beneath the surface, as your unconscious mind learns to live in harmony with your conscious self. Healing does not always mean that the pain disappears. As Jung said, healing is not about curing, it's about making whole. You may still remember your wounds, but they no longer define you. The energy that once created nightmares now gives birth to symbols of renewal. The same emotions that once overwhelmed you now become guides, leading you toward deeper understanding. In this new stage of spirituality, your dreams become a sacred classroom where the soul teaches through imagery and feeling. They reflect your progress more honestly than your waking mind ever could. When you dream of reconciling with someone who once hurt you, or when an old fear no longer makes you panic, it's your unconscious celebrating its peace. The dream world becomes a mirror of your inner harmony, showing that your spiritual awakening has reached a new depth. You no longer need to fight or flee. You are able to observe, to feel, and to let go. The boundaries between darkness and light begin to dissolve because you now understand they are both part of the same truth. Your unconscious is not your enemy. It is your oldest companion. And as you heal, it starts to trust you again. The chaos in your dreams settles because your inner world no longer needs to scream to be heard. The fears that once haunted you now transform into symbols of wisdom. You might wake up remembering a dream where you fly, swim in clear water, or walk through golden light. These are not random images, but the language of your soul telling you you are safe now. This transformation in your dream landscape is a reflection of your spiritual growth. It shows that the layers of your being, body, mind, and spirit, are beginning to move in the same rhythm. The more peaceful your inner world becomes, the more harmony you will see both in your dreams and your waking life. The night no longer hides your fears. It reveals your healing. And that silent transformation, often unnoticed, is one of the clearest signs that you are far more healed than you think. Leave your like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any powerful insights that awaken your dreams into transformation. Comment below, "I am transforming through every dream," to affirm your journey toward hidden healing and spiritual growth. 6. Peace with the shadow. You've stopped fighting your darker impulses, and that's one of the clearest signs you're far more healed than you think. There was a time when you might have seen jealousy, anger, or selfishness as proof that something was wrong with you. You tried to suppress them, hide them, or pray them away, thinking that being spiritual meant being spotless. But real healing, as Carl Jung's Spiritual Wisdom reminds us, isn't about erasing the darkness. It's about embracing it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung once said, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you stop denying those hidden parts of yourself and begin to understand them, you stop being ruled by them. That's when your shadow starts transforming from a prison into a source of profound insight. The moment you can observe your anger without being consumed by it, when you can feel jealousy without letting it poison your peace, you reclaim a power that's deeper than self-control. It's self-awareness. You begin to see that every emotion has a purpose, that your anger often points to your boundaries, your jealousy reveals your suppressed desires, and even your selfishness teaches you to protect your energy. Through this understanding, what once felt like weakness slowly becomes wisdom. The fire that used to burn you now lights your path. The emotions that used to shame you now show you where you still need love. Jung believed that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And through that pain, you've begun to awaken the light that was hidden within your own darkness. You've also noticed that life no longer triggers you the way it once did. The people or situations that used to send you into spirals of self-doubt or emotional chaos now meet a calmer, wiser version of you. You no longer react. You reflect. You don't rush to prove your goodness or defend your worth, because you've realized that true peace doesn't come from appearing perfect, but from being whole. That's the essence of spiritual awakening, the quiet understanding that you can hold both light and shadow without rejecting either. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That subtle shift is the mark of inner maturity, the moment when your shadow no longer controls you because it no longer needs to. Carl Jung taught that every person contains both divine light and sacred darkness, and the integration of the two is what leads to transformation. As you learn to make peace with your shadow, you begin to see how everything you once judged in yourself was actually guiding you toward wisdom. Your sensitivity becomes compassion. Your guilt becomes empathy. Your past mistakes turn into understanding. Even your wounds begin to glow softly with meaning. This harmony between what you once loved and what you once feared within yourself is the very definition of healing. You may not have realized it yet, but your quiet acceptance, your calm response, and your ability to find light in what once scared you, all of that means you're already more healed, more awake, and more whole than you ever thought possible. 7. Renewed meaning. You begin to sense that life has quietly come back to life within you, not through any grand achievement, but through the sacred simplicity of being. There's a calm pulse of meaning behind even the smallest actions: when you breathe, when you listen, when you smile for no reason at all. This is the silent sign of deep healing. You are no longer chasing happiness. You are embodying it. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." And in this awakening, you realize that spirituality isn't about escaping reality, but falling in love with it again. You start to find joy, not in doing more, but in being more present. There's a quiet richness in washing a cup, feeling the warmth of sunlight, or simply existing without needing anything to prove your worth. The noise of the world fades, and a deeper rhythm begins to move through you, a rhythm that feels ancient, peaceful, and alive. The more you awaken, the more you notice that purpose is no longer something you must chase. It begins to flow naturally when you create from the heart, when you serve without needing recognition, when you connect with others and feel the pulse of shared humanity. The divine is no longer distant. It lives through your hands, your voice, your breath. You can feel the invisible harmony between your inner world and the outer one, as if life itself has become a mirror reflecting your healed energy. Jung believed, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And now that truth lives inside you, you no longer seek to become someone else. You simply allow your truest essence to unfold. In this deepened state of awareness, patterns start to appear where before you saw only randomness. Synchronicities begin to weave through your days, small moments that seem too perfectly timed to be coincidence. You think of someone, and they call. You feel lost, and the right message appears in front of you. You sense that something, somewhere, is guiding you. This isn't wishful thinking. It's the universe responding to your healed vibration. You are finally in resonance with life itself. The language of the divine has always been timing, alignment, and intuition, and now you are fluent in it. You start to understand that divine timing was never working against you. It was shaping you. Every detour, heartbreak, and silence was part of the sacred choreography of your becoming. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain," and now that truth feels real. The pain that once felt unbearable has turned into wisdom. The moments that once broke, you have become the very soil where compassion grew. You no longer curse your past. You honor it, for it built the foundation of your awakening. You see how the pieces fit, how everything had meaning, and how your spirit was never abandoned, only refined. Now, Even the ordinary feels miraculous. You find beauty in quiet mornings, depth in simple conversations, and gratitude in the smallest details. The world hasn't suddenly become easier, but you have become softer, wiser, freer. You are no longer surviving. You are creating, connecting, and existing with awareness. You can feel the universe, or consciousness itself, breathing through you, guiding you with every beat of your heart. This is what real healing feels like, not perfection, but presence. Not constant happiness, but quiet peace. Not needing to prove that you're healed, because your very existence radiates it. You realize that spirituality is not somewhere you go. It is what you are when you remember your wholeness. Life begins to feel sacred again, and that is the ultimate sign of your spiritual awakening. We hope this reflection on finding renewed meaning through hidden healing has inspired you to see your journey with fresh eyes. If you're ready to rediscover purpose and align your life with deeper spiritual wisdom, comment below, "I'm renewed." Your engagement helps us share more insights that awaken growth and understanding within you. Sometimes healing doesn't look like joy or clarity. It looks like peace where there used to be pain, silence where there used to be chaos. You're more healed than you think, and every quiet step forward is proof of your unseen growth. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos about inner transformation and the hidden power within you.